finding random frames in Snow White until it's ugly. You know what that means? If we land on a close-up of a dwarf, we lose. 1, 2, 3. That's an absolutely gorgeous shot, and I will say, I watched this movie last night, and no, I did not like it, but I do think that it has some really pretty shots in it, including this one. This is a gorgeous shot. Now, you might look at this shot and be like, hey, Kevin, it's just a bunch of CGI, what's the big deal? Well, you're partly right. All of this back here is CGI. This is probably a big blue screen back here that they set up behind an actual set, which is this part right here. This part is more than likely an actual set that they are standing on, and that is something key that you see in a lot of movies, is to augment the CGI with some practicality that the actors can interact with, just to give it a little bit more realism. If everything in the shot was CGI, if this was also CGI, yeah, it would look weird, it would look unnatural and uncanny and wouldn't look quite right. But that's not what's going on here. They're also probably using something like a soft sun from behind to just mimic the sunlight and give these nice highlights all around and provide just a lot of contrast, especially in this area right here. There are a lot of dark spots and light spots and dark spots and light spots. It's also worth mentioning that the director Mark Webb and the DP Mandy Walker put a lot of intentionality into the color choices of this movie. They wanted the color of the film to evolve with the story and match the emotions, the emotional undertones of the story based on which scene was playing. For instance, in this scene before the evil stepmother arrives, these colors are bright and there are a lot of colors and they are saturated and they just have an emotional undertone of happiness. Whereas if we go a little bit further into the film, right here, we can see that these colors are a lot more muted. They aren't as saturated, and there is more distinction between the colors. They are more separated from one another. Not to mention the overall tone of this image is more blue because they are mimicking overcast skies, which is just, you know, it's a metaphor. It is a metaphor for dark times. And you might think that's a little hammy, but for a fantasy movie like this, a fairy tale, I think it is pretty necessary to just have the visual style of the movie match what is going on in the story. And again, we have a beautiful shot here. Another thing I appreciate about this film is that they chose to film in a 2.39:1 aspect ratio, which is an anamorphic aspect ratio, and that is a clue that they used anamorphic lenses, and in fact, they did use anamorphic lenses. This film was mainly shot on an Arri Alexa LF with Panavision Primo anamorphic lenses, and the Panavision Primo lenses do have some warping at the edges of the frame, which provides some character to the lens, but they are also known for their mix of sharpness in the details and softness in the skin of the actress. And speaking of the actress of this film, Rachel Zegler is not the problem with this film. Yes, she may have some awkward facial expressions every once in a while, but there are times in this movie, specifically the parts of the movie that they didn't try to modernize, where she embodies the character of Snow White better than any other actress I could possibly imagine. It is not her fault that this movie is not good. The reason this movie is not good is because they couldn't decide what this movie was supposed to be. For instance, if we go back to the first musical number of this film, the Where the Good Things Grow, this song reminded me so much of The Greatest Showman in all the worst possible ways. And this is coming from someone who liked The Greatest Showman. I thought it was perfect for what it was. But in a Snow White movie, when you have other songs that were written 100 years ago in a different style, in a different tone, songs like this, songs that sound like they are made for modern day Broadway, just don't work. I'm sorry. They're fine songs on their own, I guess, but they don't work in the context of the other songs or just the general ethos of Snow White.
Just whistle while you work.
And what was funny is I didn't even realize that the writers of these songs did actually write Greatest Showman until I had that thought. And there was a song in this movie towards the end that my wife heard, and she was like, this sounds just like a song from Evan Hansen. And what do you know, the writers of these songs actually wrote Evan Hansen as well. So you can't have that. You can't have your style be so recognizable when you're trying to recreate the original feeling of the Snow White movie. You can't have people thinking of Evan Hansen when you're watching Snow White. But anyway, I digress. Next shot. 1, 2, 3. Oh, this is a gorgeous shot. I love how dark this shot is. I personally wish they would have went darker with this sequence because the original film did this sequence a lot better in my opinion. But I also love the color harmony. I love that she has blues in her dress and she has reds in her dress. And so they chose to use blue light and red light. It's simple, but it's a two-tone image and I think it's nice. I'm not sure if this is the exact same shot, but this is a BTS photo of one that looks pretty similar. As you can see, they are using big LED lights in soft boxes, maybe airy sky panels to mimic the blue moonlight. And then they are also using this, I believe that looks like a Leco light or something out there, just with a red gel on it or something. Not sure exactly, can't tell, but that's what they're doing. Looks cool. Okay, not ugly. Let's go a little bit further. 1, 2, 3. Okay, this actually, everything in this section of the movie, in the dwarf's house, I think looks absolutely gorgeous and embodies the original spirit of the original film. So I love these sections of the film. The DP said she really wanted this set to glow, and I think they did a great job at it, because outside of every one of these windows is a 20K mole beam light, just blasting light through. And they're not afraid to get a little bit overexposed in the highlights down here, because that creates a nice glow, especially when you're using these anamorphic lens. They may have been using a filter in front of the lens as well to just give a kind of a mushiness to the highlights. It's soft, it spreads across the image a little bit, and it gives again, a glow. Which I do find interesting, because I rewatched the original film, and this section of the movie in the original film is actually probably the least aesthetically attractive, because there's not really these lights coming into the house in the original. It's kind of just, it's more of a kind of a dark, musky house that these dwarfs live in the cartoon. But I'm glad they went with this, because it has more of a fairy tale vibe, and it, again, the colors and the lighting choices are evolving with the story, because this part of the film is supposed to be a little bit more happy, and like she found some relief in the forest, so I'm glad they went that direction. As far as the lighting on her face goes, they probably have some LED lights just on the ceiling to give a general ambiance that's giving her a little bit of light. So not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, again, this is a gorgeous shot. It's gorgeous. Again, these lenses just have a very nice, silky, soft look on them. The skin just looks so soft. Also, you can see 2 different eye lights in her eyes right here. This one is probably the lantern that she's holding up, and then this one is what they're actually lighting her with. So they're not actually lighting her with the lantern. They're probably lighting her with a big soft box off to the side. And again, we have a good choice of moonlight coming in from the ceiling that helps to complement her outfit, because they are using a shade of moonlight with an LED light from above that is more saturated. It's more teal than you would normally see in a movie. It looks more colorful, and that I think is intentionally selected to match her outfit. Also, it's worth noting that they're doing the same thing with her makeup, specifically whatever they're putting on her lips matches her costume in the reds. Doing little things like that, the details, are what separates the amateurs from the experts, and that's why I don't have a job, and that's why you don't have a job, and that's why we're making YouTube videos right now, is because we don't know what shade of lipstick to put on Rachel Zegler. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Oh man, I mean, okay, we got some dwarfs, but this is a really pretty shot. It's a nicely composed, it's a nicely framed shot, ignoring the CGI dwarfs. I think one of the things this film and the DP Mandy Walker does extremely well, at least in certain parts of this film, is creates depth with lighting. And what I mean by that is that it's not flatly lit, right? You're not just getting one light positioned in front of her and everything else is just kind of neglected. You have all of these pockets of light that create shadows and therefore create depth. You have light pocket over here. You have a light pocket on this guitar specifically. You have a light pocket on the floor right here. And that creates contrast with the shadow areas around it. And that creates depth. You have light back here. You have light back here. You have light where you wouldn't expect it to be necessarily. You have light back here. And that just creates kind of a contrast between this light pocket and her hair. It kind of makes her stand out a little bit more than if that light pocket wasn't there. You also have a light pocket on her dress right here. And that, again, just creates a little bit more of an interesting look than if you just had one light in front of her, just flatly lighting her and the entire thing behind her. And the way they were doing this is just simply with multiple lights. And they have a ton of lights in this scene that you don't even recognize. They even have lights up here, it looks like, to mimic lanterns. They might actually be real candles, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's one thing to keep an eye out in this movie, is just the amount of light pockets you see, because that creates an interesting image. So definitely not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Whoa, what are you doing there, Flynn Rider? Where's that hand going? Next shot. 1, 2, 3. Okay, yeah. I mean, this is cool. I love what the anamorphic lenses are doing in this frame. You can really tell it here. It's like the edges of this frame are distorted and blurred because of the anamorphic lenses. And I do like that. I like that a lot. You could make the argument that it's not appropriate for a fairy tale movie, but one thing to know about this scene in particular is that they are not actually on a set here. They are in a real forest, I believe, and they went through extreme lengths to light this forest. So the things they had to do to light this scene, because they were shooting outside in direct sunlight, in order to get this nice overcast looking, soft, even light, was to hang multiple 20 by 20 and 30 by 30 silks above the actors in the tree canopy, like 30 feet off the ground, to block out the sun and just provide a nice even light. They then, off the sides of the frame, had to construct 90 feet half grid cloths that they shot 18K par lights through just to provide the key light on the face. And you know, that's a lot of work for what I consider to be the least aesthetically pleasing scene in the entire film. And the reason I think it's the least aesthetically pleasing scene in the entire film probably just boils down to the fact that they couldn't control the light as much in this situation as they could the other scenes where they were in a studio and they had, you know, hundreds of lights that they could turn on and off. And so that leads me to ask the question, did you need to shoot out in a real forest? Could you not have done this on set as well? And two, why did you choose this lighting style? Because you could have done the same thing you did with the dwarf's house and just had pockets of light shooting through. You could have had more harsh shadows, and it would have looked pretty nice, I think. I think it would have provided more depth and contrast than what we have here. But that goes back to their color principle that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, because this scene is a lot more dark than the previous scene. It's a lot more, I think there's soldiers that are going to come and fight them. And so I think the director and the DP wanted this scene to feel more overcast and dreary and blue, to just give the emotion of, you know what I'm saying. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Wow. First of all, we love a good upstage key light coming from behind our actress, because it just provides more depth in the image when the highlights are on this side of the face and the highlights fall off into the shadow side, which is closer to us. Also, there are probably a lot of VFX going on in the shot. I'm not sure exactly what this is supposed to be. I think this is a lens flare right here. I don't know if that's an actual lens flare or if it was added in post. They did mention that some of the anamorphic lenses they used vignetted on the sides. So there might be some of that going on. It might be natural, but it might not. Who knows? And also, who knows if they were using something like a glimmer glass filter to create this nice, soft, glowing look. They probably were, but they might not have been. This could have been done in post as well. Not ugly, though. 1, 2, 3. Whoa. That's actually kind of stunning. But before I talk about the cinematography, let me just quickly mention our gal here. As far as the looks of the evil stepmother go, I think she is stunning in this role and she is perfect for the part. However, there are parts of this movie, I don't think it's entirely Gal's fault, that do kind of take you out and make you realize that she is playing a character. Specifically, I think the musical numbers of this film that she sings are not very good and should have been cut from the movie. You don't need the evil stepmother singing songs, honestly. Just like have her be the only person in the film that doesn't sing, and that kind of gives her kind of it differentiates her from the rest of the people who are happy and singing. You can have her not sing and she's the evil one who doesn't like to sing. I don't know, maybe that's a flawed way of looking at a musical, but you don't need her singing. So anyway, as far as the cinematography goes, we can see another aspect of an anamorphic lens, which is the bokeh in the background here. This bokeh is kind of oval shaped, and that's what anamorphic lenses do. They bend the light in the background to be more oval shaped instead of circular most of the time. Second of all, we just have a very nice soft light on her face. This is actually one of the instances where they're probably only using 1, maybe 2 lights, big soft lights to light. We're not seeing the pockets of light that I was talking about earlier, but for a close-up, this works perfectly. We can also see the big soft light in her pupils right here. That's one of the biggest eye lights that I have ever seen. It's very nice, and it kind of gives her a fire in her eyes look, you know? Again, this isn't the exact same shot, but you can see a similar shot, and they probably use similar lighting for the shot we're looking at, where they're just using a big, soft LED light, maybe 2, primarily being lit by this one, just to really wrap around her face. And as you know, I'm sure, the bigger the source of light and the closer that source of light is to your subject, the softer the light is going to be. So that's why we use silks, that's why we use soft boxes, because it spreads the light over a larger area and just creates a effectively bigger source. And you're gonna put that as close to your subject as you possibly can. And when you are doing a close-up, like we see here, you can get pretty close with that source of light, and it's nice. What do you want me to say? So still not ugly. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's a cool shot too. Love the flames in the background. This scene was not as scary as it should have been though, but not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this is cool. Again, we have the same set that used to be happy and bright and saturated and yellow, but now we have a more overcast lit set because, as you can see here, Snow White is spoilers for Snow White, she dead. And so again, the emotional undertones of this scene are unhappy, so they use unhappy colors. Again, we have a BTS photo here that you can just get a little hint for how many lights they're actually using for something like this. I'm not sure if this is the exact same scene again, but what we have here are a lot of Maxi Brute lights, I believe, over in this direction, mimicking the sun. We have a lot of maybe par lights back here blasting through a silk, and this just creates a nice sunlight. We also, for the daytime scenes, have this. I'm pretty sure that what they're doing is there are probably a lot of LED lights up here, just tons of them probably, and they're shooting through a silk as well in the daytime scenes. And they might be, yeah, actually they might be doing it right now too. They might be dimmed a little bit and just giving a nice blue ambient light, because as you can see, there is light on the actual house that is not coming from these lights back here. So it's probably coming from just the ambient light up here. You can also see that this set is wrapped in blue screen. There's blue screen all around it. So they are replacing that blue screen, obviously, with all these trees and stuff. Okay, still not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Again, we have a gorgeous shot. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about this besides the green has more color harmony with the shot because there's green in the background. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I like this. Again, we're switching color palettes up, and I think that is a good thing. We're going from bright to overcast, and I think that pattern just helps keep things interesting in a color manner. And again, we are choosing the lipstick color specifically to match the costume right here to create color harmony. It looks really nice, and the red makes her stand out. And one more time, I will say that Rachel Zegler is not the problem with this film. She looks like Snow White. I'm sorry, she does. She looks like Snow White. Get over it. And second of all, if you watched West Side Story, you would know that she is a great casting for Snow White because her singing voice is perfect for the role, at least in West Side Story. In West Side Story, she has a much higher register and sings in more of a vibrato, and honestly, that's just perfect for Snow White. However, for some reason, they didn't choose to have her sing like that for most of the actual Snow White movie.
Wondering, will she appear, or will I be forever here, waiting on a wish?
But again, I think that goes back on the fact that this movie did not know what it was trying to be. It's not Rachel Zegler's fault necessarily. I don't know, maybe she was on set and was like, I don't want to sing that high. I don't want to mimic Snow White in exactly the same way, but who knows? Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. I like this shot a lot. Now, this does remind me of some of the lighting in the new Wicked movie where there is a very bright light outside of a window and you're just shooting directly into that light. And what that does is it basically flares the lens and causes a lot of it washes out the image. As you can see here, there is not a ton of contrast in this shot. It's kind of washed out from the lens flare. But I think it's cool because you're also getting this nice defined lens flare right here. And it's, I don't know, it just looks nice to me. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Wow. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Again, I'm going to reiterate, one of the shortcuts you can do to make your shot look nice is to have color harmony. Basically, just choose 2 colors and make the entire image those 2 colors, and it's probably going to look pretty good. Because right here we have whites, which I guess isn't really a color, but you know what I mean. And pinks. You have the pinks of the petals back here, I guess, and you have the pinks of the skin tones, and then you have white, and creating everything in the image to be those 2 colors is going to make an aesthetically pleasing shot, more so than if you had a bunch of just random colors everywhere, because again, color harmony is important and you should always keep that in mind. As far as the lighting, they might be lighting with a soft sun because they are outside here and they are craning up a soft sun to just mimic the sunlight for the entire stage. But I don't know for sure. They are also probably reflecting some light back on her face. And shout out to Sandy Powell, the costume designer. I think she did an amazing job with all the costumes here. Not ugly. Let's go back towards the middle. 1, 2, 3. Oh. Honestly, though, the lighting here is again really nice. If I just try to create a ton of contrast in the shot to emphasize the difference in highlights and shadows, you get something like this. You get kind of like a depth map of the light. And you can see that there's just a lot going on in the lighting that you might not be able to tell on first glance. There's a lot of pattern going on here. And so you can see even just on his shirt, you have shadows, you have highlights, you have shadows, you have highlights, you have shadows, highlights, shadows, highlights, shadows. And on his face, you have highlight, shadow, highlight. You have highlight, shadow, highlight. You have highlights all back here. You have shadows, highlight, shadow. Again, pockets of light. And I think that is part of the reason that this image looks nice, lighting wise. So for that reason, I don't think I can call this ugly. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, forest scene, nice soft light. See, this is what I'm talking about, although they tried here a little bit. The lighting on their face and body is just really even and soft. You don't have those hot pockets like I just saw with Dopey, but they are trying a little bit. They're definitely shooting a light through the trees right here to try and create a little bit of highlight on the trees back here and right here and stuff. Just on them, it's pretty flat. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're done.